There's a fire in my soul, in my soul. And every time it burns, that's when I know where to go, where to go, where I am to go.
Hi, welcome to this week's episode of Behind the Senior Lens. I'm Lori Wood Habiger, your host. This week, I am talking to Denise Baldwin, who is a senior portrait photographer in the Cincinnati and Dayton, Ohio area. So let's welcome Denise. Hi, Denise.
Hi, Lori. Good
How
to see
are
you.
you?
Good.
Thank
I'm
you
glad.
so much for joining the Behind the Senior Lens podcast. I've really been looking forward to talking with you on here.
I'm glad to be here. Love to do
Great.
it.
So, I introduced you as being in the Cincinnati area.
Yeah.
Are you in a small town near there or where?
Um, I'm just north of Cincinnati. To get to downtown, it's probably about 30 minutes. So we're really in between Cincinnati and Dayton.
Okay.
So Dayton is also about 30 minutes from here. But we go to Cincinnati more often than Dayton.
Is that where the kids want to be photographed?
Usually, yeah. Yeah, we'll
Okay.
go into downtown, or in our area here, we have a lot of fields and parks and farm
Right.
kind of areas too.
Okay.
Um, I actually have I was counting up at least 15 districts that I work with.
Oh,
So the local district that's closest to me is Lakota, which
is
is a
what?
huge Lakota
Okay.
schools. So it's a pretty big district. They have two high schools, which are both very big. But then we have a lot of other high schools around. There's Mason, Kings, Fairfield, and then a lot of private schools too.
Okay.
So I work with Cincinnati Hills a lot. Um,
Well, do you feel like your area is suburban or what kind of area are you working in?
yeah, I would say suburban.
Okay. All right. Well, tell me, how did you get into photography? And then at what point did you decide to focus on seniors?
So I started officially photographing other people at the end of 2016, like the second half of 2016.
Okay.
Um, my oldest son was very young and was taking pictures of him. You know, people saw the pictures and then said, "Hey, you should do that for other people." So I started photographing families, seniors, maternity, newborns, all the stuff.
I think so many of us started out doing all of it.
Yes. Yeah. So I started out doing that, and then as I got into it, I realized I'm a former high school teacher and I've spent most of my life with high school kids. So I just felt myself gravitating toward those kids again, which I think is very interesting.
It is.
Um, I also love the newborns. So I really was like, I honestly probably could have gone either way, but they're so different, that I found myself, I was like, I cannot load up my car for newborns, take everything out, load up my car for seniors. They're just so different from each other. Um, so I did love the newborns, but I decided because I have this affinity for high school kids, that I would go that direction.
And they rarely cry.
Rarely,
And
yes.
you don't really have to stop and feed them throughout the session either.
Well, occasionally, but
Sometimes. Yeah. So, about how long into your photography business journey did you really convert over to seniors then?
I mean, I have to go back and look for sure. I would say within the first couple years, two or
Oh,
three years,
great.
I say. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
just trying to,
interesting. I think so many people start with seniors. It seems like when their own kids are that age, but that's not
mm,
true for you at all.
no, no, it was not. And like I said, it may be because I was just so used to being around high school kids. And my friends had high schoolers at that time. So that was probably a natural fit too, that I knew people who had
Yeah.
kids in high school.
So tell me about your family.
So I have two boys. The oldest is 10, and the youngest is 7.
Okay.
So pretty young.
Yes. What do they think of mama out working and photographing the kids?
I think they think it's pretty cool. Uh,
Yeah.
my oldest often wants to come and help, hold the reflector and stuff like that. I've let him come on a couple sessions where it's just like a half-hour session and it's
Yeah.
somebody we know, like our family knows or something. Because he's good for about 20 minutes and then he's usually hiding in the bushes after that.
Yes.
So
Do they ask for for you to have photo shoots with them?
they don't ask for it.
Okay.
Um, I probably need to do it more often than I do. So
Your own kids.
I know. I try and get our family in front of a photographer at least once a year.
Yeah.
Uh, the past couple of years, I've done it myself and just set up like we rent a studio, and I have a camera that actually it's one of my old cameras, and it actually has a feature where it takes pictures whenever somebody smiles,
Oh,
which is very handy when you've got kids that are being crazy. And
I didn't know that a camera like that existed.
yeah, it was an early Sony.
Really?
And so I'm holding on to it because I don't want to give that up,
That's
you
pretty
know?
cool.
Yeah.
So what do you use now?
So I still use Sony. I've been a Sony person from the beginning.
You have
Um,
these.
like when they first came out with their digital cameras and all that is when I first switched over to digital and was always with Sony. And I know people say, "Oh, Sony people are fanatics," I love it. I've never tried anything else though, but I
What-
love Sony.
You are fanatics.
I am a fanatic, yes.
What is your favorite lens? Do you have a favorite?
I do. I use the 105
Okay.
actually prime lens. I love that one.
Yeah.
Even though it's long, it's I don't everything just looks better through that one.
Are you doing mirrorless or are you still DSLR?
Mirrorless.
Less. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had a 105 too a couple years ago. I'm a person where I change what my favorite lens is a lot, but I
Yeah.
realized that 135 is my thing. There's been a few times when I switch systems that I'm like, oh, I don't need 135. I'm going to get a 105 this time. And because it is even in that difference from 135 to 105, it's so much easier to fit because sometimes there's like a fence behind you or stairs
Right.
and you don't have to stand so far away with the 105. uh,
Right.
I always end up going back to the 135 every single time.
Yeah.
I've bought and sold too many 135s.
Yeah, you just get used to something and you stick with it. And
Yeah.
and I've stuck with primes. I've got a couple zoom lenses and I'll try them, but I just feel like they're not as sharp as the
Yes.
prime lenses.
And you
And
don't
I
get that really nice background separation either.
right.
The
Yeah.
dimensional
I do
box.
have a 35 that I use just for when I need to get wider shots.
Yeah.
I still use that.
Right. Yeah. Well, I love your business name, In Lovely Light. It's such a beautiful name. How did you come up with it?
I don't, when I was first starting the business, I was just feeling so inspired just to, I don't know, just I felt like I was supposed to start the business,
Yeah.
and the name kind of came to me in the midst of that inspiration. I'm like, that's it. I don't know why, but that's it.
Well, it's a great name. And I actually think that it describes your work, which is really interesting. But I feel like your pictures are lovely. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're pretty. And I've said before on here that I just like to make pretty pictures.
Yeah.
And
Me
if it's
too.
pretty, then I love it. And your portraits are pretty. And
Thank
so I love them, of course.
thank you. Yes, I do. I like making pretty things.
Yes, me
I should say
too.
capturing pretty things. I mean,
Yes.
I always think it's a collaboration. It's what the client brings, it's what the atmosphere brings, your location, it's what you bring. So I'm capturing what's there, you
It's so
know.
true.
Right.
So Denise, where do you love to shoot? Do you like to go into Cincinnati? Do you love the fields? What is your favorite places?
Mm. I get asked this question every now and then by my clients, and I always say variety is my favorite thing. So I don't have like, I don't want to go to the same place over and over because I would get bored with that. I really love variety.
Mhm.
So, I love going downtown. I love working in, like, we have some cute little towns around here that are like, brick streets and
Yeah.
little shops and stuff. And then also hitting the fields with the flowers and stuff like that and the sunsets. This past year, I don't know if you found this. I know you do a lot of fields and sunsets and
Yes.
things anyway, but this past year I had more requests for solely fields and flowers. Because in the past, almost always they'd want a combination of,
Yeah.
downtown, plus we need to hit a field too. But this year it was just, I want the field and I want the flowers.
That is really interesting. I didn't see it
Yeah.
so much, but there's just such a variety. I have some kids that only want to do the city. Most of them want the combo, but I think it's really freeing when you get a kid who just wants like the nature locations, just not having to navigate the city and give them addresses to meet. And I always have to make this whole little schedule. Okay, it takes this time to get from here to here, and it'll take this amount of time to shoot. And I have to back it all up, and it's too much thinking. I would just like to go to the park and wander about doing pretty things.
Yeah. And then downtown you have parking and all that
Yes. Well,
spots. So,
honestly, like weird street people too.
yeah.
That's becoming an issue for me. And it's really uncomfortable when you have a senior girl or a senior boy and you have a street person screaming at you. And for years, I barely dealt with it, but it just seems to be happening more and more. And so that's another reason I'm relieved sometimes when they just want to go to the park or maybe the Nelson, like our art gallery, because they have security on the grounds. And I don't want to overpaint the picture, but it does seem like I'm having more and more uncomfortable interactions downtown.
Really? Oh, yeah. That would be hard because you got all this equipment with you too. So
Yes.
you want
Well,
to,
my plan is always to hit them over the head with the camera. Probably need to cut that out.
okay.
Okay, Denise, we are going to start looking at your work. It's my favorite part. And you've picked out a really fun assortment. And I noticed that in my mind, your work there's two things that are in almost every picture of yours. And one that's leading lines. You
Mm,
often have lines leading into your subject and architectural elements. I notice you work really well with architectural elements and getting them to frame your kid in some way. So, those are the things that I noticed, but also I didn't ask you, are you natural light only?
I am basically natural light. Yeah,
Okay.
the past couple years I've started using this small LED that I take with me.
Okay.
Um, I'm sure I don't use it well. I have ideas of, I might want to do a bigger constant light because I do like constant lights a lot, but it
Yeah.
has to be portable because I'm moving around all the time. So
Yes.
that is in my ideas of what I would like to do.
Yeah. So, Denise, I think you have really, like I said, your business name really matches your portraits. You've got lovely light, lovely locations,
Mm,
wonderful skin tones. But what I really, really notice is how you are so good at integrating the architecture and into the portrait.
mm,
So here you've got these fantastic arches.
mhm.
You have your kid placed just right where there's a number of choices you could make on where to center him, but I really like what you did here.
Mm.
Anyway, tell me about the portrait.
Well, this is one of my favorite places if we're downtown. It's this old Presbyterian church that's right at the end of actually the oldest park in Cincinnati. So it's like a boulevard park, where you've
Yeah.
got arches in the park that are lighted and stuff. So everybody loves using that. But then if you turn around, there's this gorgeous church here. And this is just one of the side doors. And so they've got this iron gate on it. Sometimes the gates open. So I've taken pictures of, like, I have a beautiful one of a ballet dancer inside that gate there. And I love that they've got the lanterns lit up back there.
Yes.
I think it just gives a lot of good depth to the picture
It
too.
really does. And I think anytime you can get a light element into a portrait like this with those lamps is just a win. I've been known to fake it if they aren't turned on. I'll make it look like they're turned on.
Oh yeah.
But that looks really pretty. And I even love, you can see in the church door back there, I think, in the window is the reflection of the one lamp that's on the gate. So anyway,
Yeah.
it's really pretty.
And I loved that, I always try and get my guys to wear a suit or a blazer or something. They don't always do it, but I love that he did and that he put the tennis shoes with it.
I agree. That is a really popular look. My own son did that. I love the guy pose where they're not looking at the camera. That's one of my favorite ones to do. And they always look so cool. And I like that it brings out that young jawline of theirs too.
Yeah. This same kid did another pose in front of the main church doors here with his dog. They have like a white Labrador with like the dog looking one way and him looking another. I love that
Aw.
one too.
Do you have kids bring pets with them a lot?
If they want to, I
Yeah.
am totally open to that. I'm more of a cat person. Like I can't control your dog if your dog's not going to be controllable, but everybody that's brought one has, the dogs are fine. So as long as they can,
Unruly dogs.
what's that?
My kids bring unruly dogs.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
They assure me that they're very well behaved and they're very well trained. And then they bring the dog and it goes absolutely crazy, so excited about the new location and sniffing and running around. And we end up, it seems like so many times do not get good shots because it,
oh,
it must just happen to be these particular dogs.
huh.
But I've had so many dog fails.
Oh. Well, I always have them bring, like I'll say, okay, just bring them to the beginning of the session. We'll shoot those and then dad can take the dog home or something.
Yes, that
Yeah.
is the best when the dad will take the dog home.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, we are going to move on. Love this one. And this again illustrates what I think is Denise. And that is that you've got many leading lines. So if we have some new photographers listening, I'm just going to explain what leading lines are. And that is anything in the portrait that leads your eye to the subject. That is really helpful. And if you can, as a new photographer, start looking for those things and situating your senior so that those lines draw your eye in towards the senior, that's a step towards really professional portraits. So you can see a ton of lines here, all going straight into this kid who is looking so sweet and cute. And another thing is in posing, we like to do triangles, which I don't always think about this, but apparently we're supposed to be thinking of triangles a lot. And you've got this great triangle of her arm here along with this cable.
Mm,
And so tell me about, oh, another thing I love is
what's that?
this little half bokeh ball over here.
Oh, yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. So tell me about the portrait.
Well, this is another downtown location. This is the Roebling Bridge in Cincinnati. It goes across the Ohio River, and it's a really popular spot for pictures. And if you see the blue bridge, like you pretty much know, everybody knows where that is.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay. That's a
yeah,
famous senior portrait spot.
yeah, and yeah, any kind of portraits, family or whatever. And it's actually the bridge itself. When you're driving on it, it's not like a road, it's a grate. So you can look down through to see the river below you. So so if you're afraid of heights or anything, it's a little bit scary sometimes,
So
but
we have a bridge similar here where I have to warn the girls not to wear spike heels because their heels are going to get caught in that. Do you have to deal with that?
well, fortunately, we do most of them on the sidewalk. So this is on the sidewalk beside
Okay.
the bridge. Now, there were a couple times over the past several years that that bridge was closed for construction, but you could still walk on it. And so all the photographers like took advantage of that because it was closed off to cars.
Yes.
So there's all these poses of people right on the bridge, right in the middle. during that time, but
Oh,
not usually.
it's a beautiful bridge with this light blue color.
Yeah,
Nice of them to make it a photogenic color for you all.
great. True. And then you get the pink behind it are the buildings on the Kentucky side.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a gorgeous place. I'd be going there all the time.
Hmm.
Again, natural light only, correct?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. All right, we're gonna go on to the next one. And I absolutely love this picture. Again, I think it's so you. We have the framing architectural elements, and we even have the leading lines here in the door that are just pointing straight at the girl. And it's just like a really pretty location. I see like soft colors in your work, and I love the hat. So tell me, do many of your girls wear hats?
I carry hats with me.
Mhm.
I think it's great to have, even if they say they're not a hat person, it gives them something to hold on to. So
Yes.
even if they just have it down by their side, um, I think it's very helpful. So this is a popular hat. The past year or two, people have really liked this one. But I carry different colors and different styles.
Yeah. I,
Yeah.
I was talking with April Manning last week about hats and how often the girls will be like, no, I'm not wearing a hat, or I'm not a hat person. But then if you beg them and they put it on, they end up liking the pictures a lot.
Yeah. And you say, oh, we'll just do it at the end. Like it's not
Yes.
going to mess up your hair. And just, it gives you it makes a triangle if you go like this, so you can
Does.
look through the frame or something. And
And this would be a great shot without the hat, but I feel like it just makes it. And the girl is just glowing.
yeah. Yeah. This is actually a daughter of a good friend of mine that I went to high school with.
Oh, really?
So,
Isn't that
yeah.
neat? When we
Yeah.
can photograph friends' kids.
Right.
Okay, another one of my favorites of yours. So I am a sucker for very shallow depth of field with a very out of focus background that puts the highlight right on the subject. So you are like me in that I can see. And this is so shallow depth of field with that forest back there. And the swing, I always want to photograph with a swing like this, and I don't know where any are in public.
Uh, this is
So,
this is at a flower farm um,
oh.
around here that is very popular right now for photos. You can rent it by the hour, and they rent it out for weddings and stuff. But you can use the swing when you're there. So
Is there a fee to shoot there?
there is. It's only like $35 for an
Oh,
hour now,
wow.
so
That's great.
not bad.
Well, it's a beautiful picture and full of triangles, leading lines, and architectural elements. So this is natural light. I think a lot of people might mistake this for OCF if they didn't know that you were a natural light photographer, because you do have the subject, all the light focus is on your subject, and the background is dimmer, which I know a lot of people who do OCF are doing it to get that sort of effect, but you've got it here with just the light that the earth gave you.
Yeah, and she was facing the sun, so the sun was where she's looking to the west as the sun's going down.
Oh,
So
really? Well, you
yeah.
oftentimes the skin tones when you're having them face the sunset are horrible, but you did great with this.
Yeah, I think it was down enough. We might have had some cloud cover at that point. That's it was pretty good.
Yeah, so many times I do that, and then I'm having to scrub the magenta out of their skin. And I
Yeah.
always feel like it never truly looks right. It's just a struggle.
Yeah, I know skin tones are hard. I've struggled with that a lot,
Yep.
especially natural light, as you know.
Yeah. So is this one with your 105?
It was.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Now, do you have a macro? Could you take super close-ups if you wanted?
It's not a macro. I think that maybe the 90 is the macro,
Okay.
which I read about that one after I got the 105. So I might have gone for the macro one if I realized it before I got the 105, but
No,
I love the 105.
I've had my 105 was a macro, and it was kind of cool because you could get really great shots of their eyeballs, but It's just kind of a boutique thing. It's not like you're going to do the whole shoot like that, So I think
Right.
you're fine without the macro part of it. Let's go. I love this. And this actually reminds me of a girl I know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but this is adorable. And so what do you have her laying on?
Oh, so this is this I think I actually got as a newborn prop because it's probably like I don't know, 3 feet by 4 feet or something, a piece of material that I got from the fabric store. And I kept it around because I love the texture.
It's
And
beautiful.
yeah, so I just put her on it in the middle of the field. And I don't know, I may have extended it a little bit in post. I can't remember.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I thought it was pretty with, like her pink lip color and then the pink behind her.
Yeah, it's perfect. And you can tell that she loves the whole setup too. Like, I just love when you get your kid into some sort of pose like this, and you can tell like they really are believing in this at the moment. You can see because they're really selling it and looking happy in a genuine way. And it's really fun for me to see because sometimes you'll shoot and they're having a good time, but then you run into some situation and you can tell they just light up and are just having so much fun with something.
Yes.
And you can see that she's doing that here.
Yeah, that's an important thing for me too, to make sure that this is fun. This is because that is the whole part of the experience. It's not just that they're going to get great pictures, it's that they're going to remember this as one of the highlights, hopefully, of their senior year.
That's so true. Did you have senior portraits done?
For me,
Yeah.
I did way back.
Do you remember the day?
I do, and it was in a studio. The whole thing was in a studio. Um, I have pictures of it now, and like they've cut off my hands, and I have the big puffy bangs and all that, and
Yes.
nothing like we do today. So
Right. Same.
I wouldn't say it was fun necessarily. It was just more kind of stressful.
Yeah, it was kind of both for me. I did go with my twin sister, and so we had fun. Anytime we're doing something together, we have fun. It was an elderly couple that had a studio in the town nearby. We kind of figured out, so Mrs. Wright, they're Mr. and Mrs. Wright. Mrs. Wright would come, you would sit on a stool in the studio with a backdrop behind you, and she would come literally like move your head exactly the way she wanted it. And then she would go back and we figured out that he couldn't see very well. So she would go and literally like pat his butt when he was supposed to take the picture. But if you moved a muscle, by the time she got back there, like she would sigh and come back and start moving you just so again. I mean, it was so stressful trying to just please let me stay in this spot so I don't distress Mrs. Wright again. But they
Don't
were
breathe.
sweet, and they're actually quite good. The portraits, very traditional senior portraits. And I had some poof to my bang. I had a little mullet going. But they're pretty, they did a good job, but it was kind of comical at times and stressful also. But see, we do remember, I'm 55 and I do remember my senior portrait day for
Yeah,
good and for bad. And my mom was there and we had a fun time. So I can imagine how fun the type of shoots that we do are for these kids, the
yeah,
girls in particular. I would have loved to have laid on a mat of roses
me too.
with baby's breath around me and or whatever that is. I don't even Queen Anne's lace, I think.
Yes, exactly.
I
Yeah.
that would have been so fun.
Hmm.
And if I moved, it would have been okay.
It makes you want to get senior pictures done now, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
I know. A
Yeah.
different kind of senior, Denise.
Yeah. By the way, I have learned that you have to say you are a high school senior photographer because there's
Oh,
been more than one occasion where I go somewhere and I say, "Oh, I'm a senior photographer," and they're
yes.
like, "Well, that's unique. I've never heard of anyone photographing seniors."
Oh my gosh.
And then I realized they mean senior citizens.
Yes. That would be quite a thing.
Although there are
Actually be
some
pretty
people that do
fun.
that. I've seen a photographer recently that's her specialty is senior citizens.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, she dresses them up in really fancy dresses. And I mean, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, here are these 80-year-old women and
Yes.
they don't get to feel pretty, you know?
Another favorite, and I noticed that this is the main image on your website,
Yeah.
and it's a beautiful one. I love that you have a really natural editing style, Denise, and you can see your freckles, which I think is so important to keep that sort of detail. And it's so easy. I was saying in another podcast that we have so many editing tools available to us now, and it's you just got to watch that you're not going too heavy-handed but you don't even realize it. There's
Right.
times where I'm in a program and I'm using my sliders and it looks fine, but then I export it and I look at it in Photoshop. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's way overdone. But it didn't look like it in the the retouching program. So I think
Mm,
there's such a danger in overdoing and not even noticing it.
yeah. I
So
think stepping away and coming back is good, because you do see things differently.
oh, isn't that true? And I notice sometimes on the little thumbnail, like when I go to open a picture and I just see something thumbnail sized, I notice defects in the image when it's small like that. That then I'm like, oh my gosh, why does this have no contrast? And I'll open it and make more contrast. And I don't see it full size sometimes. I guess when I'm in the groove or maybe at night or whatever, but then the next day when I see them thumbnail size, I can see things that I want to change.
Yeah.
Or like, oh my gosh, her skin is so red. And I see that in that thumbnail. So it's kind of
And then and then if you're like me, you start second guessing yourself. Wait, is it really red? Or am
yeah.
I just seeing it wrong now?
When were my eyes correct? Were my eyes correct last night when I edited it and thought it looked fine? Or are my eyes correct today when I think she looks too red?
Right.
It's nerve-wracking.
I
Like, what
know.
is the reality?
Yeah, I will print stuff out, just to see, okay, how's it going to print, because and then hold it up to like natural light, and see what's it really going to look like printed.
Well, you have a beautiful close-up here. Tack sharp eyes. Love it. And I have to say, I'm very jealous that you got to photograph somebody with a flower crown. I have wanted to do this forever. I guess I need to create it to make it happen, but I just keep thinking a senior's going to show up in a flower crown. And then probably like the 900 to 1,000 seniors I've photographed, literally nobody ever has.
Yeah. No, she didn't show up this way
Oh,
either.
you did?
No, this was I did this for myself because I had some flower crowns and I just had this theme, this idea. I have not really done themed shoots and I'm trying to do more of those. But this was one I did last year and I'm like, I have these flower crowns and I have these dresses and I'm just picturing like a woodland fairy kind of theme.
Yes, that's what you did. I see that too.
Yeah, so we were in a woods in a creek bed and she put on the crown and she's just got such a beautiful face and I just love this close up of her.
I do too. I just see little things that I love. So I love the little highlight on her nose. And it's just little things, but I groove on this stuff and I want to talk about it with people. But the highlight on her nose, which it really disappoints me because I notice some girls nowadays are coming with a lot of contour on their noses and they're putting like a dark color on the bridge of their nose, and I don't like that. I want there to be a highlight there.
Yeah.
Um, and also I think you're using a reflector here, are you?
Yes.
You know how I can tell.
You can see it in your eye. Yes.
I like to just kind of get a glimpse behind the curtain sometimes. And if you get a good close up of an eye, you can really see sometimes the photographer in there, which is neat.
Yeah.
I've had to edit myself out of pupils before because it's just weird.
I have too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nobody
Yeah.
wants me forever in their eyeball.
Right. Yes. Yeah, with the creek bed here and all the green around her, that putting that reflector right there helped for the skin tones.
It really does. Do you use a reflector a lot?
I do.
Okay. Would you say you use it most of the time?
I use it most of the time when I have an assistant. She's
Hmm.
always right there with a reflector. So that's very helpful. When I don't have the assistant, usually the parent will be holding it. There are times that we're just moving so fast or whatever, and
Or
I
it's
forget
too
it.
windy.
Or,
The
yeah, or it could be too windy, or I'm like, oh, we got a sidewalk right here. We're fine.
You absolutely love this. So, did you plan that she was wearing this Chanel-like suit that happened to perfectly match whatever it is? It to me looks like an upside down boat she- that she's sitting next to. Did you plan all this
Oh,
together like this?
no. So the picture was just her sitting here on like a cement thing in front of a theater across the street. And during the not so busy season of the winter, I looked into pixel stretching. Have you heard of pixel stretching?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
But I
So
haven't ever done it or even read about it. I just heard of it and seen a couple.
I did it on a few different images, and this was one. And honestly, I could not do it again right now without going back to the
Yeah.
website and following the steps to do it. But so this one, I took some of the colors from her outfit here and just stretched it and twisted it. And, you
Oh my
know,
gosh.
it's interesting that you thought it was something here. I never thought that people might think that.
I thought it was some sort of statue in the middle of a town square that looked like an upside down, the whole of an upside down boat is what I thought it was.
I see. Wow, that's cool.
I don't know. That fascinates me. I'm very impressed. It looks fantastic. There's a lot of tools out there in Photoshop that I have no clue what they are, and I'm sure I should know because it would make my life easier. But I'm really loving that generative fill. Do you use that?
Yeah, I especially use it for extending the background
Yes.
because it's so much easier.
So much easier. Do you remember back in the day cloning, using the clone tool to try to add background? And oh my gosh. I just really started using, well, I think they introduced the generative fill a year ago, and it's really changed my editing. It is so much easier now.
Yeah.
And I have this thing where sometimes I just can't shoot straight.
Hmm.
And so somebody's like clear off to the side when they really shouldn't be. And it's so much easier to fix that later by making the computer just add some rather than me having to clone in more on the side.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And it's nice that they have it in Lightroom now to like when I want to extend the background, I still go into Photoshop,
Yeah.
but they still have I guess it's the AI, right? In
Yeah.
Lightroom where you can it's just so much easier than Lightroom used to be because I would always take everything from Lightroom to Photoshop and then back to Lightroom. But it's really just over the past year that I mostly stay in Lightroom now, unless I have, like a background to extend or something bigger.
Wow. I'm impressed. I knew that generative fill was in Lightroom now, but I have no idea how to use it, and I've never done it. I really use Lightroom as a dark room, to adjust exposure and that kind of thing. And then I go to ePhoto and then I go to Photoshop.
Yeah.
I do
I mean,
most of my editing in Photoshop.
okay, that's how I used to be. And then I would take
Yeah.
it back to Lightroom to finish. But um, I was trying to speed up my editing a lot.
Mhm.
And that was one piece of advice that was given to me is like try and stay in Lightroom as much as you can. And with the improvements they've done, it really is a lot easier than it used to
Yeah.
be.
What do
So
you use for your skin editing?
I just stay in Lightroom right
You
now.
do.
Yeah, I mean, I want to add Evoto because I've heard how really good it is.
I can testify to that.
Yeah, and I need to do it. So soon I
It's
will be.
super easy. It's not like learning Photoshop or anything. It is an easy program.
Yeah,
Denise, it's amazing. I could not imagine life without it now. You'll run across a senior that their face is just covered in acne.
yeah,
And what a job that is. And you want to do well for the kid and you want it to look natural. And it's just so hard when there's hardly any unblemished skin to work with the
Yeah.
patch tool and all. And Voto, I'm not kidding, will take a kid with the worst acne I've ever photographed and get rid of it in the click of a button, and it looks so natural. We're going to move on from this amazing pixel stretch. Just wanted to say that. Pixel stretch sounds cool.
It's funny, our cat is named Pixel.
Is that right?
It sounds like a pixel stretch. Pixel stretching.
Next time your cat stretches, you're going to have to say pixel stretch.
Yeah, that's right.
This is absolutely stunning. And I truly hope that these people have a massive print of this hanging in their home because this is the classiest, most perfect senior portrait a person could ever hope for.
Oh.
So, how much of a haul is it to get to this waterfall?
So this is one of the parks that's not far from us here. Um, we had to, let's see, you hike down kind of a hill, but there's stairs. And then we walked along, it's like stone. I tell my seniors, I always feel like it's part hiking adventure, part photography session.
Yes.
Because if we're doing something like this, like bring your rain boots, like we're going to be walking through the water to get there. So we were walking across stones and stuff. And
Wow.
yeah, we got here and her mom was with us, carrying stuff. And she's an amazing dancer. And she was just up for anything. And so I'm like, go up there and just do some of your stuff. And she just struck this beautiful pose
Well, you're
and
having to shout at her, I'm sure, because the water was loud, but it
yeah,
looks so peaceful. And
yeah,
are you standing in the water?
probably. I wear my rain boots always and I just jump right in. Yeah. So
It
and
really-
my voice is not super loud. So I have learned that if I can give signals like hand signals, it works so much better. So I was probably doing some of that with her.
Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful. Do you find that a lot of girls are wanting water pictures lately? It seems to be a trend
Uh,
here, just starting.
I mean, it just depends really on the personality. Um, and probably if they've seen, examples like
Yes.
this that they like, then they'll ask for it. I think more the fields. I mean, I've seen way more requests for the fields, the wildflower fields.
So two things are percolating here. I had never been asked for night photography downtown. I was asked for that this year. I
Oh,
didn't really have the setup to do it, so I said no. I do have these light tube things now that we saw at the one conference. I
yeah.
think I could pull it off with those, but I don't really know. I don't talked about don't really enjoy the weird people downtown, and at night it's even worse. So
Mhm.
I might end up having to do it. But then the water, that became huge this year. I've hardly ever been asked to photograph people in water until this year, and now everybody wants it. I'm steeling myself for a ton of water shoots this year.
Whoa.
And it's not easy. We don't have a lot of places where you can easily get into the water close here because there's so much brush along the edge that there's just no way in.
Oh,
If you can find a place in, then it's so slick from the algae or whatever it is that's growing.
yeah.
But I know they're all going to be asking.
I do have to tell one story of an incident gone bad actually
I
at this
know.
this very location. It was it was in the spring and it was going down toward this waterfall and it was a senior boy. And I learned something from this, and what I learned was you never start with a risky location. You always end with it, right? Because we were heading down and it was wet from the rain and he slipped on the rocks and got his whole outfit mud covered.
Okay.
So I felt so bad. I'm like, I gave them a towel for their car and like we just rescheduled and said
Yeah.
we'll come back the next day or
I
something.
mean, what else can you do? You had to
So,
reschedule unless you were probably shooting towards evening.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt bad. But I always, when something like that happens, I'm like, okay, what lesson did I learn?
Yes.
It was don't do that at the beginning of the session ever.
Don't do the risky at the beginning. That's so true.
The people that are asking for water sessions where you are, what are they wanting to do in the water?
Oh, they want to float around in it?
Oh,
Yes. It's not
okay.
just posing near the water like this girl you did with this girl. They want to be floating on their backs with flowers around them, like
Oh.
floating. And I don't know. I'm sure it's some sort of TikTok thing. So thanks, TikTok.
Uh-huh.
Well, it takes so long too. I tell them if we do water, that's okay, but you won't get as many images in the end because it takes such a long time to get them in there, get them out. Then they're soaking wet. They've got to change into their last outfit usually because my girls always want to end in the field at sunset.
Oh.
So the water part has to come earlier, and it's all this big ordeal that takes forever.
And then what do they do about their hair? Their hair's wet,
Well, we got
probably.
to be really careful. See, a lot of the girls will float around, not mine, because they've got to be okay for that sunset shoot. So I can't let my girls float in the water. But a lot of people do that here and they do it at sunset and it's beautiful. But my girls are like, no, I want to be on the prairie at sunset. So we've got to be very careful of the hair. And I do worry about just exactly what you mentioned with your guy happening. It hasn't happened yet, knock on wood.
Yeah. Oh.
Okay, let's move on. Okay, this to me may not look like the most exciting portrait in the world, but it's what we do.
Mhm.
And I think that the majority of us, probably at least a third to half of our galleries, have portraits just like this, very focused on the kid. There's not a huge environment around them. They're not in water, they're not on a bridge, they're just them in front of a colored building or something. And it's wonderful to have those other things, the environmental portraits and that, but to have something like this, where you can cut out all the other and it's so focused on just this human right here and how they're feeling in that moment. And I think it's really important for all of us to continue to do that sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree. I love her expression and that's the picture that her mom's gonna love, right?
Yes. And this will be the one hung on the wall, you
Yeah.
know, because that's their kid right there.
Hmm.
And you've got beautiful light on her face, by the way.
Thanks.
Might I say lovely light?
Thank you. It's just this is in a parking lot on the backside of a building, and we got open sky above us.
Yes.
So
It's very flattering light. You did good.
thanks.
Okay, we're gonna move on. And my favorite color, well, I have several, but one of my favorite colors is orange. So I was very happy to see this. And how lucky are we that people in this city paint their buildings interesting colors?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
wish more would do it.
this is at a farmer's market or like a downtown market down there that has so many colorful buildings. It's just really inspiring to shoot there.
Yeah. Well, and it's all got all the Denise. It's got your
Okay.
architectural elements and it's got your leading lines.
Yeah,
And I wondered, have you noticed that? Do you try to do that, or is that just something that comes out and you didn't realize?
I have not noticed that. I mean, I always think of, leading lines and thirds and some of the
Yeah.
compositional techniques, and I would love to include more of them in there,
Yeah.
but I'm glad to see that you see those things.
Yeah,
So
it was very clear to me when I sat down and started looking today. So it's interesting the way our brains produce something without us overtly thinking about it sometimes. But you
yeah,
definitely have a style with that. And you've got the little you've even got some triangles going. So they're subtle, but you've got them going. So this is a really nice portrait. And I do like that her lipstick kind of matches the orange, which I'm sure was probably just by chance, but I like
yeah.
it.
And I have to say this jacket she has on was from my car.
Oh,
She actually brought this, well, it was supposed to be like a puffer jacket, like a navy
yeah.
puffer jacket, and she went into the restroom to change and she was like, guess what? I forgot the jacket. And so I was like, well, let me see. I think this jacket might work that's in my car. And I've been wanting someone to wear this. But since I usually shoot in the summer, it's more of like a winter type jacket. It just worked out perfectly for her. I love it.
It looks great. Looks like she chose it herself out of her closet. And it's so nice to have some things in your car if you could get them to wear them when it suddenly gets cold.
Right.
Like a cold wind comes up or they forget something of their own. I had one year where everybody forgot their jewelry. So I got online and bought a lot of jewelry just to keep in my car. And,
Uh-huh.
nobody's forgot their jewelry since. So it just sits in my car, just doing nothing.
You're ready though.
Yes, I'm ready. I have more earrings than a person would ever need in their lifetime. So, okay, we're going to move on. And I think this might be the last one. I love this. And I feel like this could be one of my pictures too. I just love the kind of tunnel effect that you get in the alley. And you've got those fairy lights hanging up, which, bokeh balls are like the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And also this dress. I put a
Mhm.
dress like this in my story this year and begged somebody to buy it and wear it for their senior portraits. Nobody did. It might be
Uh,
this exact dress, but this is beautiful. So
yeah.
tell me about the how you created this portrait.
So this one is at a fairly dark alley in a town that's not too far from us here. So I'm always a little concerned about the light here, but we went in there when it wasn't quite too dark, like it was just, on the early part of the session.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I had a reflector here. I either had the reflector or I might have had my LED light here, um, lighting up her face. And oh, let's see what else. I love the lights back there. These lights are interesting though because it's where I don't know if all lights are like that, but like different shots will have the lights lit up and some of them don't because
Ah,
they're alternating, you know,
yes.
current.
Yep.
So it just so happened that this one had all the lights lit, which was fortunate.
Yeah. Well, the colors of the alley really match well with those rust tones in the dress.
Yeah.
And I love that she is not looking directly at you. That adds just a fresh perspective on the whole thing. And another thing that I love is the angle of your shot. So the height of your shot.
Mm.
So is, a lot of people like to go low, but I think it's almost too low. It's fun for a boutique, like a fun portrait. But if you want like a hanging on the wall sort of portrait, there's a certain level that you need to shoot from. And some people shoot too high and then it makes the person short, or they shoot very, very low, but you have this perfect height. I was always taught in the old school days when I started 20 years ago that you really should have the lens about nipple height. That should
Uh,
be where your lens is. And
uh-huh.
you've got that going here. And I think you can see what a beautiful level it is for her. It's just a flattering, it's not too low, you're not too high. It's just the perfect place for the lens to be. And I think those type of things, a lot of people don't really think about or why, but you've got that here. And it's just something I look for and I love.
No, that's good. That's good to
Yeah.
hear. I can see. I never like to be so low that you can see up their nose. You
Yes.
know, so I think we accomplished that here. You're
Right.
not
Or
picking
it
up
makes
their
their
nose.
hands look really big if you're too.
Right. Yeah, true.
Sometimes I do that, I want a cool low angle, but then I hate how big their hand is. So I'm in liquefy, like trying to shrink down the size of their hand. If people had any idea what the things we do sometimes. So, all right. Well, Denise, this has been super fun to talk with you. And maybe after the next busy season, we'll regroup and we'll talk again. You can show me some of your new work after this year. And I want to thank you so much for coming on Behind the Senior Lens, Denise. It's
Thank
so
you
fun to
for
talk
having
with
me.
you.
Thanks a lot, Lori. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.